So now let's have a quick look at what is Kanban, where we have come all the way. So in that context, we're going to have a look at the very essence of Kanban, which is the flow. And Kanban by itself is not an agile methodology, as I mentioned before. So um, please do not be under the impression that you have got a Kanban certificate. There is a Kanban certification. There's a lean Kanban certification called LLKD and things like that. But that in itself is not really helpful because Kanban is not a full-fledged methodology by itself. It is basically a set of tools, techniques, and a thinking that really would help you track what we call here as the flow. So you can look at the flow of work, you can track it, you can visualize it, you can plan for it, control it, and manage it better. That's what Kanban is really about. It's not about the doing work in an agile way. It's a different thing in itself. So we'll have a look at that. You'll come to understand that clearly as we go through the session today and tomorrow. So let's see where we stand in terms of the agile methodologies. And in the last, this is the fourth session, so we'll have a look at what we did in the last three. So just to recap and jog your memories. So you've got, so we started off with the basic premise of what an agile methodology really is, what is the definition of agile, how different that is from waterfall. I had a look at the values and benefits of agile methodologies over the traditional mainstream waterfall type approaches. We had a look at the stakeholders. We had a look at how you could really trace and track the requirements and the work products all the way back and forth in agile. And then we had a look at some of the key methods and techniques, planning pokers and the Fibonacci series and the Kanban boards. In that context, we had a quick look at that point of time, but we're going to have a deep dive in today's and tomorrow's session. So we actually had a flavor of what Scrum was, and then rapid application development, lean, Kanban. We understood behavior-driven development, the TDD scenario, the acceptance test cases, Gherkin statements, feature-driven development. There are different flavors of all of these. And then on the scaled agile framework and the DSDM, which is much larger, the scope is much larger than just a product team. So you're talking about involving the customers, ensuring that you are actually embracing the change and making sure that the business is keyed in from the first day instead of actually giving them product on the last day, the deliverable. So that involvement of the customers in the business into the engagement of the stakeholders early on into the product development, and then making the team empowered to take the decision where the team does estimate, the team does the development, the team does the delivery. So pretty much everything is owned by the team in Agile. So having said, this is the kind of context what we set for the Agile, and then we moved on into the core principles and concepts of Agile. So we had a look at the Agile manifesto of how it's important to actually have the process focus rather than the documentation, how it's important to have the working product as the core deliverable, not something else. So in Agile, the working product itself is the core deliverable. It's not the documentation, it's not the processes. We still follow processes, but the processes are lightweight. They're not really that eccentric. They're not that heavyweight processes that we want to implement in Agile. And then we had a look at the three pillars of Agile, which is the transparency, inspection, adaptation. So you do something really quickly, don't keep planning, don't keep thinking about things, just do it. And then once you do it, implement it and assess how it is, see the result, ensure that you continue to improve on that. If it is good, accept it. If it's not really that up to the expectation, if it needs some improvement, try and improve, and then again, implement and go on. So that's a continuous cycle of improvement, what we call as continuous development, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. Very, very, these are the three pillars of every Agile methodology. The continuous development and the Kaizen mindset again goes back to the Kanban. And then we talked about the time boxing, again, and very fundamental to Scrum kind of methodology. Again, make sure that you are differentiating between Scrum and Kanban, because we're going to have a look at it today. Kanban doesn't have the concept of time boxing, whereas Scrum does have it. So Scrum has sprints, whereas Kanban doesn't have any kind of time boxing saying, I need to do this work in this specified time. So we'll talk about that in detail, but you need to understand that it's not all the same. And then we'll have a definition of done, definition of ready. We would understand that and how it fits in the context of software testing in Agile methodology. So we had a look at all these aspects of continuous integration, getting the feedback early on. So you fail early. So it's not about failing. Don't be afraid to fail. With Agile, you should fail. That's the whole idea. But then fail early instead of later. So you are failing early. That means that you're getting to know your problems and the issues early on, instead of 2 years down the line where you had put in a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time in. So it's important to know this, again, very, very fundamental. Failing early, failing fast, as what they call fail fast is the mantra of Agile methodologies. And value delivery, business value delivery, not the technology. We had a look at all of these in that context. And then we had a deep dive into Scrum. I think that was the last session, part 3, where we understood Scrum, what were the core principles of Scrum, the roles. We had a look at the roles. There are 3 key roles in Scrum. Again, there's a team which is actually doing the work. They estimate, they plan, they deliver, they own the product in that sense of delivery. But then there was somebody else called product owner, who would set the roadmap, the features, prioritization of the features, and making sure that the project and the product is going in the right direction. So that's the product owner's responsibility. And then we've got something else, another role called Scrum Master, who's basically kind of a facilitator, not a manager, but a facilitator to ensure that the team is functioning well. And that's the 3 roles that Scrum does, nobody else, nothing else. So there's a product owner, Scrum Master, and the development team, or the Scrum team. And then we had a look at how Sprint is at the heart of Scrum, very, very foundation stone of Scrum, which is basically the time box, as we discussed just now. So Sprint is a time box of 2 to 4 weeks within which you do some work, and then potentially that work could be delivered to the end customers or users in a release. And then we had a look at the artifacts, the deliverables. We had a look at all of these, and then finally look at the scaling of Scrum. So pretty much we had a deep dive into each of these in the last few sessions. So I don't want to really spend a lot of time. We had pretty much covered these in the last few. So just to kind of give you a recap, because it's a bit of